Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Kelly. I'm the Senior Director of School Sports Programs working for Special Olympics Maryland. I oversee the Interscholastic Unified Program. I've had the opportunity to meet a number of you throughout the years, and welcome. Thanks for joining the District 11 preseason coaches briefing for Interscholastic Unified Tennis. I'm joined on the line by our Unified Tennis Chair, Allie Rock. Allie, welcome. Thank you for joining. As well as a number of people who will be working with you locally, and my colleague Kendall, who serves as the Regional Sports Director, serving the Eastern Shore and select counties westward of the Chesapeake. Without any further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. The PowerPoint presentation that you see on the screen will guide the discussion, but I'll also be toggling to the Google folder that houses a number of documents, tools, references that will help facilitate a successful season. There will be a question and answer opportunity at the end of the presentation, so if you have any questions, please jot yourself a note. I did fail to mention that those of you joining online, the webinar service that we now use has you call in as a listen only mode, so we will disable that at the conclusion of the presentation and take questions and answers. Once again, if anything comes to mind, jot yourself a note and we will happily take those. We intend for the webinar to be fairly brief. This is just going to provide a general overview to make sure you're aware of all of the administrative requirements, but then also the tools that are available to you by way of the Google Drive. That's contact list documents, training tools, pre-recorded webinars, so on and so forth. So our agenda is just that. We'll do welcome and introductions. We'll cover the administrative components, leading off with the paperwork requirements, and then as well key dates relevant to the player ratings and district tournament, and then I'll maneuver through the Google Drive, as I've mentioned a couple times already, and then we'll close with a question answer opportunity. So very pleased to announce the appointment of Stephanie Hearn. She will serve as the district representative serving Dorchester, Somerset, and Worcester. This has been a position that we sought to fill all of last year. Jen Hill served in this capacity, but she has narrowed her focus to working with the Wicomico school system exclusively. So welcome Stephanie Hearn. She is a product of Worcester County Public Schools and has returned there to home and will be working at Pocomoke High School. So we welcome Stephanie. She has an extensive history serving the Special Olympics mission through unified sports, but then also in the traditional program as well. So also want to welcome and acknowledge Jen Hill. She will continue in her capacity, as I mentioned, helping the Wicomico County program. Jen has served in this capacity for a few years now, is an elementary phys ed teacher at Pinehurst Elementary. So Jen does incredible things both in the Interscholastic Unified Program and then as well in our community program. So once again, welcome Jen returning. Wanted to make sure everyone is absolutely clear on who the school systems in which Jen and Stephanie will help. Not that they will definitely collaborate behind the scenes and otherwise, but I want to make sure we have a clear line of communication so that you coaches, if anything pops up that you need, that you know who to work with directly. So we'll get the contact information out for everyone and a follow-up email, but do want to welcome Stephanie and then of course Jen's return. As well, Allie Rock. Many of you know Allie previously in the last 2 seasons as the assistant chair for Unified Tennis. She also serves as chair for our Unified Track and Field season in the spring for our westward counties. So we welcome Allie as the chair this year. Allie is immensely familiar with the program both in this capacity, but then as a previous coach of North Point High School in Charles County. So welcome, Allie. with Allie's promotion to the chair position, we sought the appointment of an assistant chair. So through the interview process, posting an interview process, we're very happy to welcome Mark Sunkel out of Frederick County as the Unified Tennis Assistant Chair. Mark is both the varsity coach at Linganore High School for both the boys and the girls, and then is a former Unified Tennis coach for Linganore as well. So Mark, you will see him around. As well, a new addition to our staff, Kendall started at Special Olympics Maryland over the summer, so many of you haven't had the opportunity to meet her, so welcome Kendall Zest. She is the Regional Sports Director for Special Olympics Maryland, so she is your liaison out of our office, and then myself, as mentioned, Senior Director for School Sports Programs. And it's very important to, as best you can, align yourself with the communication that is outlined. Once again, we want to make sure that you coaches are anything and everything that you need, your questions, concerns, what have you, are being addressed efficiently and directly. So please do work with your respective district representative, and outside of that, then work with Kendall, and then you'll hear from Allie, Mark, myself on a periodic basis as well. So we appreciate that. Please know too that we do serve or work with 17 school systems to deliver the Unified Tennis Program. So with that, we need to, as close as we can, abide by those lines of communication. So thank you in advance for doing that. With that, the administrative components of the presentation this afternoon. And like I said, I'll get to the Google folder here momentarily, but did want to go over the points of emphasis so that everyone is at the outset completely crystal clear on the expectations. So with that, the student athlete form, a form that is pictured here, is the application for participation. We need to collect one of these forms from each student athlete, regardless of disability classification, for each of the seasons of participation. So there are no changes to this form, so if you have one pre-printed from last year, please feel free to go ahead and use that. There was this form was new last year with slight revisions to the layout and such, so please make sure you're not using any form that predates last year in the 2016-2017 school year. So an application for participation, one from each student athlete, and then the affirmation of eligibility form does accompany the batch of applications, and that is a 3-page form. The first of the 3 pages is in the slide here. So with that, it's basically an acknowledgement of all of the forms that we need to account for when receiving them, and then as well, you or the head coach would sign off on affirming that all of the respective school system requirements, be it a sports medical, emergency card, so on and so forth, all of those expectations have been met, and then as well that the student athlete has not competed as a junior varsity or varsity tennis player. Quite literally, you would collect, like I said, one application for participation from each student athlete, and then as well, you can handwrite. This will be made available as a Word document. The affirmation of eligibility form. Make that available as a Word document if you prefer to type those in, and then you would scan all of those, preferably in one scan to an attachment, or however that needs to happen, Dropbox. I'll leave you to work that out with your respective district representative, and get that to submitted. We'll go over deadlines here shortly. An additional form relevant to just wanted to go through the player assessment requirements. So with that, Unified Tennis, we offer multiple events. We offer level 1, which is individual skills competition, level 2, which is red ball short court, being confined to the service boxes. Level 3 is an orange ball using a regulation court. and then also at regulation court, we have a green ball offering and then a yellow ball offering. So all of those, the most appropriate event is determined by administering the player assessments. I'm not going to go into much detail, but just know that this is the document in which you are looking for to facilitate and record those assessments. And the importance of this slide here is most definitely that a player may not be rated down if they are a returning player. So we've had this rare occurrence in which certainly there's a subjectivity to rating. So we want to make sure that one, unless barring any extreme circumstances, one would continue to either maintain their level of play in their appropriate event or move to a faster ball. So the last sentence in the paragraph, returning players should not rate to a lower level. For example, a player who played orange ball in 2016 will play orange ball or green ball, or in a very, should be rare occurrence, yellow ball. So please know that no one would be rated down, and if there are instances in which one was rated down, you as a coach can put forth a request to have that player return at the same level or better their level. There's no competitive advantage to that. Again, the intent for unified tennis is for players to play at the most appropriate level, not necessarily the highest level. So moving on. With that, wanted to also bring forth the postseason registration submission. So please do review this slide at your leisure. This is the some acknowledgments to common errors when we receive those submissions. So please do your due diligence to make sure everything is filled out in its entirety and that the pairings are valid. So all of the pairing requirements and considerations are included in the coach's resource guide, and we'll get to that as well. Again, this is a point of emphasis.
Melissa?
Yes.
It's Allie. If I could just break in, also, you'll receive this, you'll access this form in an Excel format, or if you access it from the Google Drive, whatever the Google, equivalent is. It should also be submitted in that form because we use that when we're scheduling the tournament. So if there's no other way to submit it, we can work something out with you, but avoid handwriting and things like that because this is an Excel file and there are drop-down menus that you use when you're putting people in. I just wanted to add that.
Yes, thank you, Allie. Yeah, very important that it is completed in Excel and it is then submitted as designated in Excel as well, because it makes for, we'll actually return it to you to have it entered, or we need to collect that in Excel format. So thank you, Ali, very much for reinforcing that from the outset. With regard to non-student athlete requirements, so we changed our verbiage here for those of you who are returning to, we used to reference coaches, and then would have the references to paraprofessionals, assistant coaches, team managers, that sort of thing. So the term non-student athlete, we believe, is all inclusive of everyone who would fit this category. So all non-student athletes need to have a Class A requirement, and there are a number of bullet points there explaining why exactly we need to obtain that clearance. In short, we, Special Olympics Maryland, do work with 21 school systems of the 24 statewide, and while all of those school systems are administering background checks, doing their due diligence to make sure good people are working with their student athletes, we too are bound by our governing bodies and such to make sure of our own clearances as well. So please do take the time to review that slide there. It is, one can obtain a Class A clearance with 2 easy steps. One, they would complete the volunteer application and release. This is a 2-page form, so that's supplement C of the coach's resource guide. Fill out the information. We no longer require a social security number, so know that. You would complete that and submit it to our office, and so that's step 1. And that's page 1 of the document there, image to the right of the slide. And I call this step 1.5 if a student, or excuse me, if a non-student athlete, so this might be a team manager, it might be a person, you know, of the varsity tennis team who's there helping with practice, anyone under the age of 18 that's aiding the team needs to complete the student minor reference form and have 2 non-family member references. So that is then provided in an image there, and then also, of course, as stated, is available in the Google folder. So under 18, let me be clear, does need to complete step 1 and step 1.5. But if someone's over the age of 18, they only need to complete step 1. I know that's quite confusing. And the second and final step is to watch the protective behaviors video and complete and pass a short quiz. The protective behaviors video was a new requirement as of last year. This is a requirement by way of Special Olympics International. So with that, you can click on the live link there, which is also part of the coach's resource guide, watch the short video, answer the 10 questions, pass that, and we receive an alert to our office that you have completed it. So those 2 steps. The forms, we'll get back to you once we obtain a coach's roster, a coach's list, and we'll get to that shortly, of how we know who we need to confirm as receiving Class A clearances. We will get messages to you as to who is cleared and such to the district representatives. And all forms are due on or before the date of the district tournament. Excuse me, all non-student athlete forms are due on or before the date of the district tournament to Kendall. We collect those directly to our office because people do still at times provide their social security number, even though it's not a requirement anymore. So because of that confidential information, we don't want it passed through many hands, many entities, many inboxes. So please get that directly to our office at Kendall's email address there. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this process, you can contact Jen. Certainly is well versed in this process. Stephanie is in the process of onboarding, so some of this is fairly new to her, but feel free to reach out to her as well if you would like. But most certainly you can contact our office because these our requirements, our being Special Olympics requirements, so you can get in touch with Kendall or our registration coordinator, and that is Rachel Maddock Costin at the contact information there. Okay, let me pause just for a second as we get back to the agenda. Okay, so moving on beyond the paperwork requirements, or excuse me, let me just touch on the due dates here for a moment. So all of the student athlete forms and the affirmation for participation are due for coaches out of Wicomico County. You're going to get those forms to Jen. For all of the other coaches in Dorchester, Somerset, and Worcester, you're going to get those forms to Stephanie Hearn, and those forms are due on or before September 15th. And then please do know that those are adjusted from the coach's resource guide due dates because Jen and Stephanie will receive those forms. They need to review those forms and complete and ensure completion, and then figure out anything that is incomplete or what have you. And then as well, on September 22nd, the postseason registrations are due, and those are your actual lineups for the district tournament. Let me reinforce that. While you may be toggling players between pairings and such during your quote-unquote regular season, what you put on that postseason registration is you are going to be held to that as your registration for the district tournament. So please be sure of that. What you have there is, one, compliant with the expectations outlined in the coach's resource guide, and 2, you know that to be your lineup, and consider health, obviously, injury, absenteeism, so on and so forth. Moving on to the other key dates, so player ratings. Jen has set up a player rating for on September 18th at James M. Bennett High School. The Wicomico schools are going there, and I know Jen mentioned that the Worcester schools intended to go there as well. So more to come on the player rating dates for Dorchester, Somerset, and I've yet to talk through the Worcester assignment with Stephanie, so there could be a shift with that. And then lastly, the district tournament, working with Worcester County Supervisor of Athletics, Ty Mills, to host at, he's hopeful that Stephen Decatur will host, so more to come on the exact date for that tournament. Okay, with that, I will pause, and in front of you now is an email that was sent to all of the supervisors of athletics and athletics directors with some general reminders and the announcement of this webinar. So it's good news that we have people on it. That means that this message got out. So with that, a couple of reminders, and I'm actually going to access these live links by selecting them. The live link that I just selected is the 2017 Unified Tennis Contact List. So this is made public and accessible, that we need everyone to list their name and contact information for really all non-student athletes who are working with your program. So there's quite some work to do here. You yourselves can access this if you would like to populate it. The regional, district representatives will do some checking on this as well to make sure. Some are owning this entirely within the district representative realm of responsibilities, but feel free to access this yourself. You simply type your name in, and then there are columns to the right to add additional people. It really is an endless opportunity for you to add, again, coaches, team managers, as well as paraprofessionals that are working with your team. So please do make sure that that is complete as soon as possible. We'll use this as a distribution list or a contact list as we get information out. So going back to the email that was sent out, Allie did a great job of administering a pre-recorded webinar to review the coach's resource guide. This is a new format. We have decided that delivering it by way of live webinar was inefficient, and with the governor's order to start schools after Labor Day, we realized that we needed to be most effective and efficient with our time. So she has a pre-recorded webinar review of the coach's resource guide, is available using this live link here, and then the guide itself is available by way of the Google Drive, as is all of the other resources that are pertinent to the season. So with that, the screen that you see now is the Google Drive. You have Coach's Toolkit. So those are the recordings. Pardon me. We also had a member of the Special Olympics Maryland Tennis Sports Management Team administer pre-recorded webinars to provide a virtual on-court coaches training, if you will. So there are 3 segments to that. So these are for individuals who are not as familiar with the sport of tennis. So you can review those at your leisure. Those are available here by way of YouTube video. We also have the athlete-centered coaching guide. We do have these available pre-printed, so if you would like to have one mailed to you, we're happy to do that. Please just let us know. But you can simply print this out at your school or what have you, certainly. Otherwise, the forms folder are all of the forms we referenced. For those of you, if there are any coaches who receive pay directly from Special Olympics Maryland, we have the direct deposit form, postseason registration. So really anything and everything that you need form-wise is available in this folder. So including the forms that were referenced moments ago during the review of the PowerPoint. The coach's resource guide, one note here, since Ali administered the pre-recorded session in early June, there was an addendum to our Class A requirements. So what Ali is reviewing on the webinar, there's a slight variation. And that review, or what she reviewed is actually more restrictive. So please know that the addendum is less restrictive, and if you abide by what Ali reviews in the webinar, it's really no harm done because you're doing going above and beyond the minimum expectations. And then lastly, we have the sample score sheet. And these are for use if you're serving as the tournament director or during your regular season matches, as you may serve as the site director. One last thing to mention is that before the commencement of the school year last year, there was a copy of the coach's resource guide mailed to each school along with 4 recruitment posters. They were mailed, like I said, to each school to the attention of the unified tennis coach. So if you have yet to retrieve that or haven't been back to your building quite yet or relocated to a new school, please do follow up with your athletics director at that school or the front office to see about collecting that hard copy mailing so you can have that available to you. We do not expect you to rely on the printed one out of the Google folder, but do realize that an electronic version is certainly viable as well. Any questions about the Google folder or anything to add, I should say, from the Stephanie, Ali, Jen? Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, and one last reference before we open up for question and answers. Special Olympics Maryland is very proud of the partnership we've been able to establish with another organization, another nonprofit, Leveling the Playing Field. This is an organization that collects slightly used, gently used sports equipment and then reissues it to sports organizations like ourselves, youth organizations alike. And with that, they have made rackets available for free. So we have announced this program previously. Unbeknownst to me, it was a bit prematurely. I didn't realize we needed to be vetted as a recipient. So that has all been done, and we have received nearly 30 rackets already that we've gotten out to coaches who have requested them in previous seasons or otherwise. So if you are in need for rackets, if you're having players share rackets, so on and so forth, let's really take advantage of the Leveling the Playing Field grant program. And with that, you would simply access the SurveyMonkey link here. And that then takes you to a submission. It'll take you just a few minutes, so we know exactly where it's going. This then goes to me, my office, and I then pass it on to Leveling the Playing Field. And we, Special Olympics Maryland, have arranged for the shipping to be charged to us directly, so it's all free of charge from the outset. So please do, like I said, take advantage of this. It should be, we really don't want it to be the case that any players are sharing rackets. You should have a racket in hand at all times at practice if you are doing court drills and such. So let's get that going as soon as possible. And then with that, that completes the presentation. So I will pause and start unmuting attendees. As with that caution, if you are in a noisy area, if you could use your phones mute option to cut down on any background noise, and we'll take questions in order of county. So any questions from Dorchester or Somerset County? Okay, and we'll go ahead and move on to any questions from Wycomico County or Worcester County.
Worcester has a question.
Yes, could I have your name, please?
This is Cassie Blakelock, Snow Hill High School.
Hi, Cassie.
Go Eagle. Great. So the level of the playing field, my kids are going to need more balls. So their balls are about 4 years old, and I think they're okay on rackets, but how can we get a bunch of new balls?
Sure. So there are two ways, and this would hold true for your uniforms and balls alike. So the process is if you could speak with your athletics director to see if there are any funds available, and
Okay.
then Ty, as you know, is very intimately involved with this program. So I'm not sure exactly how Worcester handles it, but if you could share that there's a need with your athletics director and Ty Mills, that would be great. And if the need is not able to be met at the local level, so within your school system, special experiment, we're happy to provide those. So generally speaking, we give equitably to all the school systems we partner with. So if the need is there, we want to step up and make sure there's no void.
Okay.
No, that was a long answer. Sorry.
No, let me.
Thanks, Cassie. Look forward to working with you again.
Say what now?
I said thank you for the question. I look forward to working with you again.
Oh, right. Oh, great.
Okay, any other questions from Wycomico or Worcester? Okay, any added information from any of the leadership? Okay, very good. So, I'm sorry, was there a question? Okay, so in closing, hopefully the email that I sent out, the email announcement, made it your way and you have all of the live links available. I'll reiterate that in the follow-up email along with the PowerPoint presentation so that you have everything available to you. Once again, and then as well, contact information for the all the persons introduced during the PowerPoint. So in closing, thank you all so very much for all that you do for our student athletes, the school, the program as a whole. You're doing great things both on and off the court, and really look forward to working with you and having another successful year of Unified Tennis. So signing off. Thank you again.